Hi, I'm Mai from It's My Hair Salon. Today what we're going to talk about is the two different wefts, which would be the machine weft versus the hand-tied weft. I'm also going to explain on the proper installation of the two. Okay, so I'm going to start with the machine weft first. And if you're familiar with machine weft, then you know it's a double reinforced weft, meaning that there's two wefts sewn together and it's reinforced. The reinforcement is to ensure that you have minimum shedding. So you want to make sure when you're tracking the hair, you want to just do proper stitching as well. Oftentimes when you're doing like a full head or a partial or just tracking, you can also split the track if you need it to be a thinner weft as well. When you use the hand tied, which I'll show you later, you'll notice that it's a single weft. So with the machine weft, you get more hair per square inch because, like I said previously, the track is doubled. So you just want to be mindful of that when you're selecting a machine versus a hand tied and what it is that you're trying to achieve with that. Okay, so like I was saying, I started with the machine weft. I just wanted to make sure when I began the beginning of the stitching, I don't like to go necessarily through the weft because, like I was saying, it's a reinforced weft, so I don't like to disturb the actual weft. So I just like to go around the weft. And if you're worried about like bulkiness or anything like that, I like to lay the tracking right at the lip of the braid, right underneath, so it can lay as flat as the actual braid is. So as long as your braiding is flat, then the actual tracking should remain flat. So I'm just coming in and looping through. You just want to have proper spacing between each stitch. Then that way you can get the longevity out of your tracking and your clients won't complain about the stitching coming loose or anything like that. So, okay. And then also this machine weft, it can also be cut. If you're thinking about the hand tied, oftentimes you can do the back and forth method, or if you do have to do a cut, then you want to secure it with either like a super glue, which I kind of don't prefer the super glue because it tends to be a little harder than I need it to be. So then bonding glue also does the same job. So that's what we're doing. We're going through securing that, and that's the proper spacing for the stitching. I know sometimes if we're in a hurry or things of that nature, we like to do larger spacing, but if you just take your time, you can move at a steady pace and do it properly. When you're installing the next tracking, depending on the density of the hair, you want to do also proper spacing. So then we would section either above or beneath, and it can be like an inch, I think like an inch or a half an inch, depending, like I said, on the density of the hair, as well as the weft. So the machine weft is a little thicker, so we can get away with an inch between the spacing of each tracking. Oftentimes, to minimize the amount of tracks that we're using on the hair, I can get a full head, appearance of a full head with possibly 3 tracks, doubling them. So you want to be mindful of that. So you want to be able to double the machine weft as well if you're trying to cover density when you're adding length as well as fullness. So be mindful of that when you're doing the tracking. Alright, so now we're going to begin with the hand tie. And I just want to show you this really quick, how you have the little string where they closed it off on the end of the hand tie. I don't like to cut it off. You can cut it off if you choose to. I just kind of like to fold it backwards. I just don't disturb the weft. So anyway, we're going to come in at the corner as we did with the machine weft. And you don't have to go through the weft of this. You should get enough security with the stitching, not necessarily going through it. And we're just going to come through talking about that spacing again, making sure you have proper spacing between each stitch, and just keep going around. So if you're noticing with the hand tied weft, we kind of touched on the fact that it is a thinner weft. It's a single weft versus the machine weft. So you want to make sure if you are using the hand tied for tracking, you probably want to double it or triple it with the International hair company, you see the actual length. They already come pre-cut as far as the hand tied is concerned. So depending on the size of the head, you can come around that one time, flip it backwards, and then it can come across to the other side. So you can either try 2 or 3 wefts, just depending on the density of the hair and what you're trying to achieve. But as I come around the head, I can actually show you how the folding would occur and how to secure that corner. Alright, so I finished the stitching coming all the way across, and I'm just going to show you how to properly fold versus cut the hand tie when you're tracking. So you're just going to fold it up over, and then you're going to put the second track under, and then you're going to come right to the corner to secure it so it can lay at its flattest. And as you can see how that just laid perfectly, and then you're just coming right underneath and then going across. And I'll move my hand so you can see how that worked out. And then that's giving you the doubling effect. So oftentimes people who's using the hand tied and want to do the doubling effect, what they will do is double it first and then stitch it doubled. So you can do that. There's not a problem with that. But if you just want to get that extra reinforcement, as well as sometimes you can tend to have a slippage of the tracking underneath, and you missed the track underneath. So this is just your reinsurance on securing that weft, and then that's how you can fold it. But that's also a technique when you're stitching a full head weave. Then you won't take the 2 and fold it over. So you want to have the adequate amount of spacing with that when you're doing the back and forth method. You might ask the question, why wasn't the weft doubled beforehand? You can totally do that. But if we're doing a track, sometimes you just want to make sure, like the tracking underneath, when you're doubling it and you're keeping the adequate amount of tension and you're going in and you're stitching, sometimes the track underneath can kind of be left behind. So it can just be that reinforcement or that reassurance that you have both tracks securely adhering to the braid and no slippage. So that would be a great purpose. When you're doing a full head weave, you can, but you don't necessarily have to double the weft beforehand. So you're going to be doing that back and forth method depending on if you're doing it directly on the braid or if you're doing it on a netting. Alright, so we're just going to do a quick recap. We were talking about machine weft versus hand tied weft. The machine weft definitely has more density per square inch, and you do have the ability to cut the track without worried about shedding or anything of that nature. Now if you do split the track of the machine weft, you do have more of a risk of the shedding, so you just want to be mindful of that. If you do have to do that, make sure it's towards the end of if you're doing a full head weave. But I would definitely not split a whole weft, because then you would be more susceptible to shedding, and that wouldn't be a good idea. With the hand tied, you just want to make sure that you do not cut the hand tied unless it's necessary. Doing the back and forth method is the best method to go with the hand tied. Like I was saying about the machine weft, should you get to the top and don't like the corners, the folding of the corners, and you want that to lay flatter, you can go ahead and cut the weft, but please secure the weft with some type of adhesive. It would be great. In any term as far as hand tie versus machine weft, it's all preference, and you just decide which one is fitting for you. Always consult your professional stylist. Thank you so much for tuning in, and see you again soon.